Guys, I wanted to record this not quick but this video tutorial to show you guys how to make sense of this game that we call Grey Hack. Hacking simulator that kind of hacks our brain when we're trying to understand what the hell is going on. There's not a lot of information regarding this game, at least not very visible information. Once you search for it, there is some information out there. I mainly recommend if you're just starting this game, you're stuck in the first mission, I recommend that you come into the community hub inside Steam and you search for guides here, and then you go into this guide by Night Party. This guide is going to be a written guide with everything on the basics of this game. You can use this index, just search for whatever you need help with. If you're stuck in the very beginning of the game, just know that you need to hack into a Wi-Fi. You don't start the game with access to the network, so you need to hack a Wi-Fi. I'm not gonna go through that, how to do that, achieve that on my own or with you here today, but just know that there's a guide exactly that walks you through step by step how to achieve that. So I totally recommend that you understand this. There's some remote hack, local hack, social engineering, how to hack bank accounts and routers and clear the logs. There's everything that you need to know about the game. It's pretty much inside here. But what I'll be going through with you today is going to be more like how to think about this game. I'm going to show you like the steps you need to follow for every single mission. These missions are kind of repetitive, but they're just slightly different, and how you actually achieve a mission is just slightly different from the other one. Or you might have to navigate a network, a more complex network, trying to navigate around firewalls and different types of securities are in place for different type of networks. So let's start at the beginning of the game. Now I believe, even though I click delete player and computer and I'm just trying to start a brand new game, I believe it's just not gonna give me actual access to the very first mission that you see on the very first playthrough. I already tried doing this before this video. I even tried uninstalling the game and reinstalling the game, but none of that worked. It just wouldn't give me access to the very first mission that you play through. So I'm not gonna go through that very first mission. Instead, like I said, I'm just gonna show you like the fundamentals of this game and what you need to do and how you need to think about this game so that you can go through the missions and successfully. Hack PC. Choose password. Your password in single player mode doesn't really fucking matter. So just choose whatever. You also don't need to remember it. So just, or at least I never had to. Again, I said I wouldn't walk you through how to hack a Wi-Fi network because I already have access to this. I think if you do a second playthrough, you get free access to this. What was the network? So again, I said I wouldn't walk you through this. A TT or something. So I'll connect to tortilla. I'm Mexican, so I like tortillas. So first things you need to do are get a mail account. If you don't know how to do this, go through the guide that I showed you earlier, and that's gonna show you how to create the email account, or you can just follow what you see in my screen. This is not rocket science. This is just hacking into the NSA. All right, perfect. So we have a mail and a bank account. We get the first email. Again, this is not the very first email you get on your first playthrough. At least I don't remember this is what it looks like. Because this gives me access to a more advanced shop. I just don't remember the first playthrough being like this. I remember it saying something like, "Hey, you're gonna be tested, and you need to like show, and you need to go shopping and something." It, like the very first email, again, I think just doesn't come through on your second playthrough. So I don't know what to think about that. So, but if you haven't, just get yourself the Decipher tool, save it inside bin. If you need to save all your all of your terminal programs inside the bin folder on your root directory. Just close and meta-exploit. You also need that. You need meta-exploit for every single exploit that you run. So, and that goes into the libraries folder, not into the bin folder, because this is not a program or like on itself. This is a library that other exploits use. Okay, so you save it, close it. Then you also have to go into the very first shop that you get on the very first email. Oh shit. So you can get other software like Nmap that also goes into the bin folder. You can get SMTP. It might be useful for some missions, especially first missions. Okay, so that's that. Then I know I need to go. If you're trying to go into the first mission, then you would follow the same steps, but on the IP address that you're told to look for or search or something like that. Instead, I'm gonna get a job here or like a quick gig and do the mission or do one of these missions. This is not the very first mission. This is the first mission this playthrough, but this is not the first mission that you get on your first playthrough on that initial email that you get. Anyway, I've said this like 10 times already, so I'm gonna shut up. So I'll accept this mission, and so here's what I wanna show you. On every single playthrough, on every single mission that you do, you have to follow these same steps. One is I recommend that you open your notepad so you can take notes on the important things that matter for this mission. Let's read through this. The client wants to modify the information of a police record. The remote IP of the victim is this. The record to modify belongs to Kenna Bibe. The client wants to delete the record completely. Okay, so I'm gonna take notes. Kenna, delete record, and the last thing I usually copy is the IP address. So just so that once I actually start going into the terminal, start hacking, that's like the last thing that is on my clipboard. And I'll just paste it into here, and I'll close this. It's very important, especially when you're first starting. There's a limited amount of RAM that you have on your computer, especially when you're first beginning, and you're not gonna be able to run all that many programs all at once. So just close everything that you don't need, and just keep your desktop clear. Otherwise, you're gonna get like not enough RAM, and your computer is gonna yell at you. Okay, so on every single mission, the first thing that you need to do is scan the network that you're given. Scan the IP for vulnerabilities. When you're first beginning, every single IP address that you're given is gonna have an external, like open port, an external vulnerability that you can look at. So how you start navigating each hack at the beginning of every single hack is that you need to type Nmap, which is kind of like a scanning. It scans for open ports, open channels of communication between computers, specifically the computer at this IP address. When you click enter, it's gonna return, it says interesting ports. So this summarizes the information that you want to see, which and in this case is open ports. We can use open ports as channels of communication between our computer and the target computer, or specifically the target network, because the IP address is not specifically tied. This IP address that you're given is not specifically tied to a specific computer. Instead, it's tied to a network. Basically, think about it. Your house has a modem, a router. Actually, let me open a program here. Scan LAN, right? And because we're in a network that we hacked into, then that means we're connected to the neighbor's network, the neighbor's Wi-Fi, right? That's why we're not the only computer in this network. Okay, and so what I want to say is that you IP. So basically, my IP, in this case, I can find my IP if config by typing if config. My public IP, the public IP address to reach this router from the outside is this one. You can see here it says internet connection. So the internet is here and it comes through your house, through the router, and then it routes to different computers. So the IP belongs to the router. Now here you're gonna see that this router shows an internal, a local IP different than this one. And that's because this is the local IP. This is not the public IP. The public IP still belongs to this, connects to the router, and the router then you can connect to different networks inside that, to different computers inside that network. How is that useful? Well, when you do Nmap, then you're gonna see that not all the open ports are gonna be connected to to the same computer. So in this network, with this IP address that we're given in the mission, we have two ports, the FTP port and the SSH port, that connect internally to this IP address. And then we have these other two ports, the HTTP and the employees services, that connect to this other IP. That means that if I can hack into this network using these two ports, then I would be hacking into the computer that has this LAN IP address. That's important because on some missions you are actually given a LAN IP address that you need, where you would find the actual files that you need to hack and recover or delete or whatever. That's important because so imagine that you're giving this local IP address, but when you first come into the network, then you come into this one or this computer. So you might have to navigate around the network to find the target computer. Anyway, that's a little bit more advanced. It's not for this video. On this video, I just want to show you like the fundamentals on how everything works and how to like think about how to hack into a new computer. So here in this network that we're trying to hack into, we see that there are 4 open ports. 2 of them lead to one computer, another 2 lead to a different computer. We weren't given specific instructions on a specific computer that we need to hack inside the network. So in our case, it wouldn't matter. So let's start hacking. So if possible, I'll be showing you multiple ways of hacking or of completing this mission. Hopefully I'll be able to do that with the money that we're given initially on the first playthrough. So to do that, once I have scanned the IP, the target IP, then I need to go into the shop, into that IP address that I was giving, where the shop lives. Just save it here in your like favorites. And you come to exploits. Now you're gonna see here in exploits, there's how you search for exploits to hack the target computer is that you look, so you see the service that is running, FTP, and you see, and then you try to look for the equivalent. It's not one-to-one when it comes to the name. Like FTP service uses the lib FTP library, but it's pretty close. Oh, just one thing to note: when you see employee service or criminal service, just know that that belongs to the SQL library, lib SQL. So you can hack into. Actually, let's show that. So you can try to hack into the network on that open port by using an SQL. And let's see if any of this gives us access to the network. So, okay. So one of the things that is very confusing is that when you start playing this game is that, so you see a list of exploits, but you don't quite have a mental map of what is useful at what point in the game and at what point in the mission, and like how you just have like a lot of different exploits at your disposal, but you just don't quite have a mental map of what is useful at what point. So to help you understand what you need to do on every single mission is that, so first scan the target, get open ports, then look for exploits, using the open ports. Okay, we're at this step. So we have to look for exploits that use these 4 different open ports. In our case, we're gonna go with the SQL, with the employees, just because, so I wanna show you that SQL, like employees uses the SQL library. Just wanna make that sure, because in my first playthrough I didn't know that, and I canceled a lot of missions that require that. So I just wanna show you that. Just understand that to hack into a computer, you need access to a shell. In order to do anything useful, you need access to a shell. Now, sometimes, let's see. For example, on this, if you use this exploit, this would work. Actually, this is perfect, because this exploit will work, but it will only give you access to the guest, to the guest user. Basically, there's 3 layers or 3 levels of permissions in any given computer that you're trying to hack into. One is root access, which is equivalent to administrator. Second one is your standard non-root user. Like in game, you're gonna see it as non-root user. That means like your standard user that is registered. And last is the guest. Guest sometimes doesn't have access to anything. Sometimes guest doesn't give you anything useful at all, other than being able to type a password and change users, which is useful itself. And this is perfect because I can begin. This specific exploit doesn't have any requirements. So before I buy this, maybe I want to walk you through what the different requirements mean. So for example, this also, this would be a much better exploit to use. Because most likely every single computer uses that net.so library. Like pretty much every computer uses that library, and that's the only requirement. So you're most likely gonna be able to get root access to that computer using this exploit. So if you're playing through this, just do that. But instead, I'm gonna go with something a little bit more difficult. Minimum number of users registered in the computer, 1. Which, yeah, again, you can kind of like that, count that as a given. Also, the kernel module is most likely there, but it's not always there. So this is something else we could use, but it just gives us access to the guest shell, which is the same as the other one. And the other one doesn't have less requirements. Same. Okay, So this one is a little bit more complex, and this is really good, so I can explain this to you. So this exploit requires that there's a root user logged into the computer. Now, there's no way of you knowing, like before you hack into the computer, there's no way for you to know if there's a root user or even just a regular user logged into the computer. So unless you run the exploit and then it gives you the error message, hey, there's no root user or there's no actual user logged into the computer at this moment, then other than that, you wouldn't be able to know. So yeah, just know that. This one says a minimum number of 3 users registered in this computer. I'll show you how you can figure that out from the outside, but it wouldn't work on this. Sometimes, because let me show you, sometimes you can use that SMT. Well, I don't have it. I have, maybe I didn't get it. Okay. Anyway, so number of registered users 3. Sometimes there's a way of knowing that. If the computer has an open SMTP, there's a free way of knowing that. Other than that free way, using the SMTP, let's Google it. So if you go to the regular shop, you have this SMTP user list, and you can use this whenever a computer has an open SMTP, and it will list the amount of users that are registered in this computer. But in this case, because there's no open SMTP port, then it's not gonna, it says not open port found. So that doesn't work in our case. Another way for you to know would be, for example, because usually all users are coupled with a mail account. Usually you can look for one of these exploits that give you the email of the user. But again, these are not very useful. Instead, you kind of want to just, if this is the very beginning of the game, just buy something, and if it doesn't work, you're gonna get an error message, and just take a note of that and find something else that works. But in our case, we're gonna go with this exploit that gives us access to a guest shell. We're gonna buy it, we're gonna put it into here. Now, again, there are more useful exploits, but because I wanna show you like how to upgrade from a guest shell, then I will be using this exploit. Otherwise, I think this one, was it this one? Yeah, this would be a much better exploit to buy because it would give me access to the root user from the get-go. But because I wanna show you how to like escalate, I'll just do it from that other exploit. So we run the exploit using the IP and then using the open port 3306. Port not found. I'm not using the right IP address. Where did I get that IP address from? 3306. And you can see privilege obtained from user. Now let's see if we can do anything with guest. Most of the time you want to open the file explorer and just see how far you can get. Do I have access to this? Permission denied, and that's normal with a guest account. So I cannot get very far. So Yeah, I cannot do a lot. But what I can do is that, let's say that I was stuck. Let's say that for some reason, I could not use this other exploit that gives me access to the actual root account. One of the things that I would be doing here is that I would either do this, where I can get the contents of the passwords filed in the computer, basically. That would print the contents, and then by getting the content of that file, then I can log in, because I already have access to the computer, at least as guest. Then I can input I would be able to input this command if it's and just change the user that I'm logged into. But first I would need access to the shell, and that's why we went for the shell first. Now I could do this, print the contents of the file etc/passwords, or I could find another exploit that for example, this one, that injects a new password for a user. Now, I don't know if we have any logged users. I don't think there's any way of knowing that. Yeah, if we go into user, yeah, but this is not. User add, user did, SMTP user. Yeah, there's no real way. So I'll just take a chance at getting this exploit and see if there are no logged in users, it will just throw an error, and I'll try something else. Now, again, I'm making this mission a little more complicated than it should, just so that I can show you like different ways of accomplishing this mission. What was the exploit called? Ouch. Yeah. So I'll run, but again, I don't have, so I'm logged into the computer that I'm trying to hack into, or that I already hacked into. So the program that I just bought is not accessible through here. So I'll just exit this session. I'm back into my own computer, and from here, I'll run the exploit. This is on SQL, so the port would be 3306. And yes, so there seems to be a registered user in the computer, because otherwise it would have thrown me an error saying there are no logged in users on the computer, therefore exploit failed. But in our case, we have a logged user. It might even be us, actually. It might even be us. So that's something that you can do, because it requires any logged in user. Now, guest is not a logged in user. You would have to have a non-root user to use something like that, to kind of like hack. This requirement is like you log in with using one terminal, and then you try to run the exploit remotely from another terminal, and that would kind of hack it. But in our case, we were lucky that there were other useful other users logged into the computer. So now we can type new pass, and oh, actually, no. Actually, there are no active users. It was just kind of like asking me the password in anticipation, but there are no active users. So I would try to find a similar exploit that does not require any logged in users. Oh, so this. Because I believe there were more than two users. So I can get something like this, inject a password. It only requires two users registering the computer, and it would upgrade me to a non-root user. So I'll buy this, save it, and tree, and the IP address, and then the port, which is 3306. Then enter new password, new pass, and then executing payload password for Hilti, modified. Okay, so I'll take a note of that. Hilti, and the password is what I just created, new pass. So now we're gonna run our other exploit, which was, what was it? Not KN. Now, to make it easier, you can just click up the up arrow on your keyboard, and that's gonna throw the last command that you run. Then you go up again, and that's gonna be the second to the last. So this is the was it this one? No, the other one. Not this one. So we run this again because we just changed the password, but we have to have access to the shell to upgrade our access inside. So to do that, I'll do sudo, and in this case, because we have access to a regular user, not the root user, if we had the root user password, we will type S and then enter and then type password. But because we don't, then what we do is sudo u, and then the name of the user, which is Hilti, and then the password, and you'll pass. And with that, now we're logged in into a regular user. And if we can open the File Explorer again, then we can see we already have access to the program that we need to complete the mission. And we also have access to the password file that you can use to decrypt every single password on this computer. Now, we only really would need the root access. We can complete the mission without access to the root user, but it's always good to log into the root user so that you can delete your trace, so that you're untrackable, right? So I'll just open the notepad, copy and paste the root user, the encrypted, this is an encrypted password. So just save it for now. And I'll receive it as root, and I'll save it here. And just close it for now. And let's complete our mission. So our mission was to change the police record for Kenna Bibe. We search for her, Bertie, Silly, Daphne, Sana, Shana, Shani. Kenna Bibe, yeah. And delete record. The entire record? Is that it? The record to modify belongs to, the client wants to delete the record completely. Yes. So to do that, I just click delete person record. And I save it, and I just close the program. And that's it for the mission. But sometimes you can like just read through and like find, you might be able to find like hidden missions by reading through the logs. There's not usually logs in there. You can use, if you see this program, you can use it to kind of like see the CCTVs. Sometimes they're useful to complete missions, but not all the time. Okay, so anyway, that's it for a mission. We can go ahead and reply to the mission and finish the mission, and we get paid. And then we just delete the mission, and that's it. But like I said, I always recommend that you get access to the root user by decrypting the root user password. And to do that, I already showed you that we copy pasted the password into Notepad, and then we go ahead and decipher. We use this decipher. You haven't bought it, go into the store, go to the Hawk Shop and to tools and buy decipher. And we're gonna use decipher to decipher the root password. And we're gonna wait. Also, something I wanna explain. Let's open the file explorer and let's see if they have the scan. No, they don't have. But we can always import our own programs into the computer. And it's usually very useful to import Scanlan. Scanlan is gonna allow you to scan the network. Okay, you can see this network's pretty huge. We're currently on this computer, and that was good enough for our mission. Sometimes you may have to navigate through a maze of networks. Like you can see here, there's like a firewall. There's a switch with a firewall, and just you might have to navigate. Sometimes you see CCTVs. So for example, in some missions, you're told that you have to hack into this specific computer with this specific IP address, local IP address. So you may have to find a way into hacking that. Sometimes you don't have open ports and you have to hack into it using more clever ways or more advanced ways that you may not think of in the beginning. So it can be useful to upload this program and then just run it. Also, again, another reason why I wanted to run this program is because once you hack the password for one computer in the network, just know that the root password for every single computer and router that you see in that network is going to be the same. So yeah, that's useful to know. Okay, so once you hack the root password, you upgrade. You type the password or you paste it. Now you have root access and you want to remove your logs. Now you don't want to erase every single log. You want to erase like basically everything that says shell obtained. You don't need to delete this connection established, but because you already have more than one, then I would basically delete everything except for the first one. Why don't we delete the first one? It's because every time that you close a connection, it creates a log. So if a user sees a connection established, or if you delete everything, then once you close this connection, you're going to create the connection closed log. And if the user sees that there's only a connection closed but not a connection established, then that means someone hacked into you and erased the logs. And they're going to try to hack into you, back into you, right? So just know that. Delete everything but the first one. Or maybe it might be more complex, but just that's a good starting point. Delete that, and now we're ready to exit the mission. You hit exit, and that's going to log you off from the current user because you logged into the root user last, then locks you out into the regular user, and it should probably log you out into the guest user. Yeah. And then if you exit again, you're gonna get access back into your computer. Now I want to write this down because I want to show you kind of like different ways. That's not the only way to finish this mission. That's just one way. So again, we used one port basically to finish that mission. But we could use any of this. So we use the SQL, but we could use basically the FTP. And again, we would try to look for similar grant access to the home and print the contents. This is only useful if you want to know the name of a user inside a network, which would be only useful if you're trying to do social engineering. I haven't gone into social engineering yet. I think I'll keep that for a different video. On this video, I want to keep it to the fundamentals on how to hack into computers. But very similar, we can just use a different port, look for an exploit that gives us access to a shell like this. This would be the same. It uses a different port. In this case, it would be the FTP port. So in another mission, you might only get an open port with FTP. So you would repeat the same kind of basic steps that we did, but using that port and using this exploit. So you would have to buy this exploit and you have access to guests. So from there, again, first explore if you have access to the password file. Most likely you won't. Then try to navigate if you have access to the other users. That's only useful if you're trying to get like the emails, but you're not gonna get access to their passwords. But just try to get as much information. Then from there, you try to run another exploit that takes advantage of, or that gives you access to either the password file. Like actually, this is great because so in the other mission, what we just finished, we got access to the shell, and then we use another exploit to change the password of another user, and from that user, we just navigated through the files and got access to the password file. Now this exploit, once you can actually run this exploit first and get access to this password. Then you would copy the root password, decrypt it as I just showed you, and then you have the root password. But the root password is not useful if you don't have access to the shell. So you would have to get, like we just did, you would have to run this other, like this, probably like this exploit. This exploit has no requirements, gives you access to the guest shell. And now, because you have already decrypted the password for the root user, then you would just do what we did, sudo s, and then you type the root password, and then you have access to the root. And that's like basically that's basically the basics of this game. You can navigate like the first levels of this game just understanding this. So in a later video, I'll probably go into social engineering and how to do more advanced hacking. Again, with social engineering, for example, you're probably gonna hit a wall when you start seeing missions that have no open ports, or maybe the ports that are open, you're not able to run exploits that are useful enough to give you enough access to the computer. And in that case, you would need to use social engineering to get access to the computer. Just know that by using social engineering the proper way, you can actually get access to basically any computer. Even if in a computer that has no open ports, even a computer that is behind a firewall, there's just different ways of achieving different kind of missions. For now, I'll just leave you with the fundamentals, which is always start your missions by scanning the target, find open ports, then look for exploits that give you access to the shell. Once you have access to the shell, and you don't have like root access, then you try to upgrade your access from there. Now you can use other Other exploits that give you access to the email or the bank accounts. The bank accounts is not that useful. There's not a lot of money. You kind of like lose more by more time by actually kind of like going through that. So I don't quite recommend it. And once you get good at this, you complete missions very fast. And again, it's not very useful to just hack into computers or the bank accounts. And for the mails, for now, if you're not doing social engineering, then don't worry about the emails or deciphering the emails, getting access to them. I'll keep that for the next video. If you have any more questions or you found this guide useful, then leave a comment, give it a like, do something, ask a question, and I'll try to answer any questions that you have. So with that being said, just peace. Hopefully you have a happy hacking.